Bum 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 ba da da.
You have brains in your head, you have feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself in any direction you choose. You're on your own and you know what you know, and you are the guy who decides where to go. But you've ended up here, I can deduce, wondering why on earth I'm talking about Dr. Zeus. Well, when we're all kids, I must profess, we sit down and follow everyone else. School, laziness, and boredom. We all know what else? Wishing for success without any stress. We do this from tweens to teens to teachers, and we end up with a life without any features. But by then it's too late, and this is not up for debate. You're overweight in a state with too little on your plate to have any fate. Sure, your life has been somewhat great. You own half an estate, you've been to Kuwait, you go fishing on weekends with bait off the interstate while you try and escape the job you hate. And I don't mean to berate, it's just that when you were young and not so highly strung, you may have wished to achieve so much more than what you have actually done. At the time of doing this talk, I'm 16 years old. I just got my learners and I go to a school of 1700 in a city known outside of New Zealand will know. Every day I've woken up and did my previous day's homework before heading off to school and a few local extracurriculars, and going home and watching Netflix. I'm just like a million other teenagers that walk around this earth. But I also have the ridiculous aspirations of a 10-year-old. I want to study at some of the world's best business and economic schools in order to work at some of the top management consulting firms in the world. But by 16, you would have thought that I would realize how ridiculous this is. And it is ridiculous. I had a look at the kind of people who get into these schools, and they're making it on national television and founding startup companies to benefit thousands of people. So why haven't I realized there's no way to reach my life aspirations with my current life? Why don't I realize that once I graduate, school will become thesis papers and then office memos, and extracurriculars will change to beer and then bourbon? Pretty much everyone else has. We've all dreamed big, some of us put legitimate effort behind it. But at some point, we realized the audacity of these goals and adapted them to something our former selves would be disappointed with. And we usually reason these changes to some uncontrollable factor. We're not strong enough, we're not rich enough, we're not smart enough, or a multitude of other variables in our lives. And for a considerable amount of instances, this is the case. Someone who's 5 foot probably won't be an NBA All-Star. But when this isn't the case, how do we end up procrastinating our lifetime goals into oblivion? From the ages of 16 to 23, the majority of our professional working career is determined, which seems bizarre because in the time span of around 8 years, the career you choose, and more importantly, the scale of that career, is effectively locked in. And you're sitting around procrastinating a report and worrying about a relationship that won't exist in a couple months. You see, we always focus on the smallest scale of our lives, what needs to be done on that day and that week, because anything more than that simply isn't relevant to what we are doing today. And this type of thinking is fantastic when trying to deal with the worries of everyday life. It allows us to survive our next class, our next meeting, and next webinar by dragging us through the day. But it also means we're dumbed down to the scale of our next class, our next meeting, and next webinar. So the reason why I allow these ridiculous aspirations to motivate my everyday life is because I've realized that our skills and talents are determined by the scale of life we choose to live, not the other way. So while many of us are trying to top a class or club of 100 because that's all we've ever known, someone else is able to do something 10 times bigger because they recognize every accomplishment starts with the decision to try. And the way I made this realization is by being that someone else. Here's what I did and what I learned from it. April 2nd, 2020. Day 9 of lockdown in New Zealand. I believed in creating the opportunity to connect thousands of students all around the world in an educational platform through my favorite extracurricular and to prove what can be done by one semi-competent 15-year-old without any funding or advice. I single-handedly founded the Cosmos Championship, an international online face-to-face debate competition which focuses on allowing students to debate on an intercontinental scale. A competition with so much potential that participants from 16 different countries had entered before any major advertising had taken place. You see, for the last 4 years, I've been exceptionally busy doing the exact same thing as everyone else. My efforts were spent on my schoolwork, my extracurriculars, and my mates. But as the world came to an unprecedented halt, I decided to pursue opportunity instead of allowing myself to fall into an epidemic of boredom and postponement. Lockdown for high school students in New Zealand lasted 51 days, meaning the average student spent around 714 hours awake, postponing their normal life in 2020 throughout the course of quarantine. But as we soldiered on through these 7 weeks, maintaining the mindset of surviving the next day, we discounted the value of these 714 hours as a quantity to do nothing, rather than the opportunity to create something. And as a discontinuation of this mindset I've held for the last 4 years, I found this time to be the perfect opportunity to go through the immense challenges of doing such a ridiculous competition. Hundreds of cold emails, weeks in website development, and dozens of Zoom calls with potential partners, all resulting in failure. And this time investment is one of the fundamental reasons why millions fail when taking the risk to do something different. It, by its very nature, is unpredictable. And it'd be ignorant of me not to recognize this issue and the challenge of starting any large-scale project, lest people who put entrepreneur in their bio get the wrong impression. Now, it's completely understandable how it can feel disappointing in what we did as the world came to a halt. But we fail to realize we get the same opportunity every single summer break, and millions of others are still in quarantine to this day. But even if we only watch Suits in our spare time, it has one message which is exceptionally relevant right now. Life's like this. We want this. And the way to make that happen is whether we see these few weeks or months as an opportunity to continue our world record in procrastination, or see it as an opportunity to differentiate ourselves from the millions of others without having to be the smartest, luckiest, richest, or most fortunate. But from what I've learned, there is one other fundamental benefit from taking major risks by starting big projects while so young. The exclusivity and the fact that you're a kid. Allow me to explain. When an adult begins a startup or major project outside their chosen profession, they're faced with many more risks than me doing the exact same thing. The reason? I don't have a wife, a child, a mortgage, and nobody relies on my stability for their well-being. Honestly, my mom still makes me sandwiches from time to time. And this means that when I choose to dedicate 500 hours to a project with no guarantee it will succeed, the only thing I am risking is my time. Even when it comes to saving face, since not many kids are even trying to do such a project, I never feel a hint of embarrassment when things go a bit sideways, because I wasn't supposed to succeed in the first place. Whereas adults in the exact same situation are ridiculed because of their failure, because of the flow-on effects of such a choice. Essentially, as a kid, you've got nothing to lose and everything to gain. So why not start now and get your first few failures out of the way? And I say first few failures because the fact that we are kids with nothing to lose means that every time we fail, it doesn't mean we have to go back to working in a cubicle. It means it's an opportunity to reset our focus, learn where we went wrong, and go again. The Cosmos Championship went from a $6,000 exclusive partnership with an organization to a $2,100 partnership to a bust, as the organization was suffocated by budget cuts, forcing the competition to be moved back by 2 months. However, since I'm a child, too stubborn to give up, the Cosmos Championship is now sponsored by the Crimson Education Youth Fund, a fantastic organization which focuses on bringing up initiatives like the Cosmos Championship. And I'm now getting mentorship from some of Crimson's top marketing executives so the competition can continue to reach its full potential. And the fantastic thing is, once you begin to push yourself to achieve at a greater scale, you'll find that greater and greater opportunities present themselves. And I now find myself as an Associate Director of Operations for the Tiger Global Case Competition. A case competition with Tiger Global as the principal partner and PwC as the official sponsor, which aims to perform at an unprecedented scale. So I stand here 8 months into 2020 as a 16-year-old who just got their learners and goes to a school of 1,700 in a city no one outside of New Zealand will know. But in the time span of around 4 months, I've completely changed my perspective on what I can and cannot achieve. Less than 2 years ago, I thought it'd be impossible for me to create something which can benefit thousands on an international scale. I stand here being the founder of a project which aims to do just that. And to make this change possible, I made the realization that my skills and talents are limited by the life I choose to live, not the other way round. So why not blow that scale out of the water? It's only made easier by the fact that by being so young, going big and failing doesn't mean I need to go home. And when I do fail, I don't look like a fool. And that the only thing I am risking when taking this endeavor is my time, which during a school holiday or a global pandemic is already worth nothing. So you have brains in your head, you have feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself in any direction you choose. You're on your own and you know what you know, but you are the guy who decides where to go. So you take that choice in your spare time to try and become something more than sublime.
Bum 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 ba da.